When the young couple came to look at the house, their first desire was to run away from there as fast as they could. As soon as they entered, an unpleasant smell hit them in the nose. The young people looked at each other, both thinking the same thing. Let's get out of here. But it would have been awkward in front of the owner, so they had to at least finish looking around for decency, even though they definitely did not want to buy the house, although the price was attractive. But what they saw inside plunged them into shock. In addition to the mess inside, there was also a disabled woman lying there. Now it became clear where that smell was coming from. It looked like she hadn't been cleaned up after, and she wasn't able to take care of herself. The man showing the house was angry. He went up to the bed and started counting out his wife in a whisper. The young couple decided to take this opportunity to get some fresh air outside. They said they wanted to look at the garden again. Maybe we should run away, Ivan suggested. Let's just finish looking and say we'll think about it, Lena replied. They decided that the man was urgently selling the house because he needed money for his wife's treatment, and he had nowhere else to go, so they could understand why he was showing it in this condition. But to be honest, the price was very attractive for such a property. The young couple was confused. In principle, they liked the house, and the discount was very good. They had to either buy it right away or refuse it right away. Someone else would definitely buy it. Craftsmen renovate such houses and then sell them for 3 times as much. Why should they miss out? They decided the couple was ready to agree to the purchase, but the owner of the house puzzled them. He announced that the house was being sold together with his dying wife. The young people could not believe this. It's illegal, nonsense. Who would agree to buy a house with a person? They want real estate for their complete ownership. You will be the owners of the house, and she has a little time left to live here, the man said impatiently. She won't even make it to the new year. Put up with it for a while. The seller did not hold on tightly to the youth. He understood that if not for them, someone else would buy it. He did not care what would happen to his wife later. He himself did not want to throw her out on the street, did not want her death on his conscience. He left that to the future owners. The house belonged entirely to him, and he set such a price. If you want it, take it. If you don't, don't. The young people decided to refuse. They went out into the street and silently walked up to the gate. After all, it was a pity for the woman. Ivan stopped and turned around to take one last look at the house. The house is good, inexpensive, he said regretfully. Let's buy it, Lena suddenly suggested, and rushed to the seller. It was a split-second decision. They no longer doubted themselves. The dying woman did not scare them. Despite some unpleasant nuances, they liked the property. The young people had only recently graduated from university and gotten married. They had some savings, but very modest. They had been dating since high school and decided to have a wedding when they finished their studies. All this time, the two of them worked part-time jobs and saved up money. They accidentally saw the ad with such a cheap house. They sometimes browsed listings out of interest, but did not plan to buy so quickly. And here was this option and this price. They immediately called and decided it was impossible to miss out. As a result, they were the first to arrive in response to the ad and decided to take advantage of this chance. On the way home, they discussed everything again, becoming even more confident that they had done the right thing. They already started thinking about how they would help this woman. Even if she didn't have long to live, they could not allow her to spend her last days in such conditions. They didn't even know what she was sick with, but were ready to help. Lena called her dad and told him everything. And her father was very surprised. He said that he had planned to surprise them in the future if he saw that they had serious intentions. He would contribute to their housing. And now, having learned about this, he realized that his daughter and son-in-law deserved trust. The young people were over the moon with happiness. It all happened so unexpectedly that they could hardly believe it. Just 2 days ago, they did not think they would have their own housing. They dreamed of an apartment because a house was expensive. And here was a whole house, obtained so quickly. They formalized the deal immediately, so that the owner would not change his mind. And then her father came to see the house. It was a surprise when he entered the room where that woman was lying. He froze on the threshold. The man could barely breathe, and his heart stopped. It really was a shock. "Amy," he muttered with a trembling voice. The woman quickly turned her head towards James. There was pain in his eyes. Amy held back tears. She was so ashamed that he saw her like this. And she would have wanted to appear before him in a completely different form, so that he regretted how he had treated her 22 years ago. She wanted to spite him, not seem like a pathetic, sick, smelly old woman. She hadn't looked at herself in the mirror for a long time, but judging by her wrinkled, skinny hands, she understood that she looked just like an old woman. She herself was disgusted by herself. The greasy hair that was unpleasant to touch. Unbrushed teeth covered in unpleasant plaque. A social worker came by to help care for her a couple of times a month. Once Amy asked for a toothbrush. Her husband threw an old toothbrush and a half-empty tube of toothpaste at her. That's what she had long been using to try to brush her teeth. To the woman's surprise, there was no sneer on James's face. He looked at her with sympathy, but that was probably even worse. Unexpectedly, he knelt down in front of her. Amy shrank back in fear. She looked apprehensively at the young couple who were standing there, confused and watching what was happening. Then they exchanged glances and quietly left the room. James took the woman by the hand, or rather, squeezed it. They were silent, not knowing what to say. It was painful for Amy. She thought she hated him, but now all the feelings rushed over her, and she almost drowned in that wave. Her heart seemed to jump out of her chest. The woman thought this was the best moment to die. Her body definitely would not handle such excitement. "Amy, how did this happen?" James squeezed her hand a little harder. "What's wrong with you?" They talked for over an hour. Realizing that these two had an important connection, the young couple tried not to disturb them, but leaving them in such conditions was impossible. Ivan opened the windows. Lena quickly started washing the floors and wiping everything down. Then, finding a moment, she hesitantly offered James to step outside so that she could take care of the woman if he didn't mind. "I'll clean you up. Don't worry about it," the girl said with a smile. Amy didn't mind. She only felt very ashamed. "It's nothing. We still have to live together. You'll get used to it," Elena encouraged with a wink. The woman burst into tears. She could not believe what was happening around her. It seemed like a dream, everything turning upside down in an instant. Although 10 months ago, that's exactly what happened. She was riding an electric scooter when a car hit her and her life stopped. No one would have thought that a walk would end so tragically. Until that moment, she was thinking about how it was time to get a manicure, get a haircut. Things were tense in the family. Her husband had grown distant from her. Work was stressful. She was a confectioner, and her nerves were being frayed. Even her colleagues noticed that her little cakes had gotten worse. Amy wanted to change her life, but didn't know how. Her marriage was a mistake, but she didn't admit that to anyone. She pretended that everything was fine in the family. She even convinced herself of that. And here's how things changed. But it only got worse. In her youth, Amy dated James. They planned to get married, but once they were at a friend's birthday party, James drank too much. He started dancing, full of energy, wanting more fun. Amy got fed up with watching this drunkenness and went home. The next day, she found out that her beloved had slept with another girl. Jenna had her eye on the young man and was giving him signs of attention all evening, not at all shy that James had a girlfriend. Amy did not think he would succumb to this busty beauty, but he did not resist. Later he called, saying it happened because he was drunk. He doesn't know how it happened, and he himself feels unpleasant and ashamed about it. But Amy could not forgive the betrayal. The girl packed up her things and went to another city. There she found a job in a factory canteen, settled into the dormitory provided by the factory, and tried to forget her broken love. She didn't keep in touch with James. James was also pissed off then. He felt he deserved a second chance. Amy left him herself. She could have kept an eye on him, and then none of this would have happened. Later, it turned out Jenna got pregnant and he had to marry her. He didn't know where Amy went, considering getting married was the best reason to forget her, but his married life did not work out. He did not get along with Jenna. She was only interested in money, which is why she stole him from Amy in the first place. He was a coveted, wealthy groom. After 3 years of living together, the couple got divorced. James loved his daughter very much. Later, she practically lived with him and was more attached to him. And when her mother got married for the 3rd time, Sophia moved in with her dad completely. His daughter is very much like her father, even in character. Look, her love since school with Ivan is just the same. The only difference is they didn't make mistakes like her father did. James regrets how everything turned out and tries to find Amy, but to no avail, already thought they would never meet. And Amy rushed into marriage herself then to forget her love. They lived in a dormitory and couldn't afford their own housing. Later, she started working as a chef on rotations in the north, earned some money, and bought this house together with her husband. But things were not great with her husband either. They lived together just because the house was co-owned and it was convenient for him. He worked from morning till night. They rarely saw each other. Everything was tolerable, and only after 22 years did the sweethearts meet again, but in such a sad situation. Amy was already prepared to die, but James could not just leave it like that. He decided to arrange for her treatment. To everyone's surprise, it turned out the woman did not have anything seriously wrong. She just needed treatment and rehabilitation. Apparently, Amy's ex-husband decided it wasn't worth spending money on treating her. Of course, if you don't treat her, she will die. But there was hope for a normal life. And a year later, when Amy's ex-husband saw a happy, glamorous couple on a plane, he was stunned. The man could not believe that this was his ex-wife, alive and healthy, with some man, and he thought she had died. Now he was kicking himself for leaving such a glamorous woman for a colleague. He hadn't had any success, and now he lived alone. He could have been in that man's place, but for that, he would have needed patience and love, and he had neither. Fortunately,